Hey guys, we thought we'd mess with your head a little bit tonight, so different view, different angle. We're going to be talking about the Mandela Effect, so I hope you're all ready for a bit of a mind bender. We'll be right back after this. Hey mate, how are you?
Not bad.
Yeah, as I just mentioned, we are talking about the Mandela Effect tonight.
Yes, there's a lot you can delve into, and it was quite interesting how the phrase was coined, the Mandela Effect, as we were speaking to a bit earlier.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's quite interesting.
Yeah, you're going to tell everyone?
Well, should I? Shouldn't I? Have I already done that? No, it was coined the Mandela Effect after the death of Nelson Mandela. I think it was 2016. Was it 2013?
Or was it in the 1990s?
Anyway, people had picked up that they thought that he had died while he was having his prison stint in the 90s, and when it was released that he actually died in the 2000s, everyone started to lose their mind and go, hang on a second, what else has this happened with?
Yeah, no, it's funny you should say that, because I actually remember hearing him about him dying in jail, but at the same time, I know that he got out, became president, and met the Spice Girls and all that stuff.
You met the Spice Girls?
And oh yeah, and then died in around 2016, somewhere around about that. But yeah, it's interesting. We've been flicking back, haven't we, through some of these different examples of the Mandela Effect. So I'm not sure if you want to go through a couple.
And I will correct myself. It was 2013 that he passed away.
It was in the 2000 somethings, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of examples that you can go through. The most known ones are like your Looney Tunes with double O instead of U. No, other way around.
See, that's how much it messes with your head. Yeah,
it is. So yeah, it's spelled TUNES rather than TOONS.
Yeah.
I was thinking of Fruit Loops. That was another one. Instead of UIT, it was double OT. But there's so many. There's hundreds. And looking back at them, I'm thinking, hang on a second. Are you sure this is the way it is? Because I've grown up knowing this as this.
Yeah.
And it just plays with your mind.
Yeah, one of the big ones is, I think, a game that just about everybody on the planet knows, and that's Monopoly. And the little man on the front, does he have a monocle or doesn't he have a monocle? Because different people remember it differently.
Oh, it depends if they do reprints and just confuse the hell out of people.
And that's where I think some of these things actually do come from. But when you go back to the originals, it's a bit like you were telling me about that Disney film from the original one.
With the mirror.
Yeah.
Yes, that got me because I always thought it was mirror, mirror on the wall.
And it is, actually.
It's a magic mirror on the wall.
Magic mirror on the wall, yeah.
But here's one that gets you, Gary. What colour is C-3PO's leg?
Yes. I always thought I even had the little, obviously showing my age, growing up in the 80s and having in the 70s. Having all the little figurines and everything like that. I'm pretty sure he was 100% all gold in that. But
I thought he was.
He is not all gold. I mean, we're not talking about the wires or anything like that. We're talking about major body parts, his metallic bits. That sounded wrong if people take it the wrong way. But he actually has a silver lower leg.
His right leg.
Yeah. It fried my brain a little bit, that one.
Look, why wouldn't Star Wars do something like that? Because they've also coined a phrase and people just cannot get it right for their life.
No. I'm your father.
What are some predominant ones that you found that kind of stick out?
Oh, I think it's the usual sort of things, you know. Like, I think the first example of it was Forrest Gump. That famous line where he sat down and he's got the box of chocolates. Yes. And is it life is like a box of chocolates, or is it life was like a box of chocolates?
Well, I reckon they'd change it anyway just to make us look silly.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, they pop up in all of the movies, and I mean, like Jaws, that famous line from Jaws. You know that because you mentioned it a few minutes ago.
Did I?
Yeah, is it we're going to need a bigger boat, or is it you're going to need a bigger boat?
Yes. I was just thinking the Jeep advert, and the little kid gets it wrong as well. I think we're going to need a bigger boat.
Yeah, and it's just there are so many of them. I mean, anybody here who's interested in the Mandela Effect, you're going to go Googling it and you're going to find 50 examples, 100 examples, 40 examples, and they're all going to be the same examples of all the same things. But, you know, we need to work out what the Mandela Effect actually is, because if it was one person seeing it, then fair enough, it's just somebody saying something a bit different, and, you know, but these things are seen en masse. You know, we're talking millions, and that then makes you think, what is causing this?
It kind of makes sense within the whole movies realm and the branding, because how many kids do you see running around quoting films or TV shows?
Yeah.
Or even today, you still get adults to do it. I'm sure we do it ourselves, and we just don't know about it
all the time.
And then with your branding, it's normally big letters, bright colours to capture the kids looking at it, and you looking at it at the checkout, and you're having quick glances, and you're talking about it afterwards, and you're going, oh well, maybe that isn't it.
I mean, you talk about the Bernstein Bears.
Yes, and there is a good video on that.
Is it the Bernstein Bears, or the Bernstein Bears?
That's the one.
That's what it's actually called, but I don't know if people try to change it but you know, the stain part of it is makes you think. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but it is a definite thing.
Well, if we can find that link, I'm sure you might be able to put it in somewhere of that video.
Oh look, I'll pop some up in the little video just above our heads, or above my head anyway. But
with that one there, it's weird because I don't know if we're going to play the sound for it, but he goes into it and actually speaks about moving a painting on the wall, which looks a fairly Gothic style painting.
Yeah.
And he's then thinking, is this a entrance to a portal, or is it, you know, something different to that doorway? Because as he walks through the doorway, it actually changes on the book. And from what I can see, it doesn't look like a lot of editing has been used.
Yeah.
Possible. But he's been known for other things through his videos that he's done as well.
And that does make you wonder. Again, there's a big one specific to Western Australia, and that is I can't remember the movie. I'm having troubles finding it, but I do remember researching this a long time ago, because obviously the Mandela thing's been around for a while, and while named the Mandela Effect only came into effect after the passing of Nelson Mandela, there were a lot of other instances where the same sort of thing happens, and it ties into things like deja vu and things like that, you know what I mean? And another movie that coined it was there's a glitch in the Matrix.
Yes.
So what are we talking about when we talk about the Mandela Effect? Are we just talking about people having mass hallucinations, seeing things weird? Are we talking about crossing over into parallel Earths? You know,
that's what we were saying just before. You know, is it a parallel universe sort of thing? And it it kind of gets me into it, because I've been watching The Flash lately through the series, and they just I don't know, it's silly. It pinpoints and comes across, and it's, you know, it's a TV show. It's completely made up, but it goes along the same thing as different parallel universes and how they could work.
Yeah.
You know, I get it's a TV show, but kind of fits in.
But a lot of TV shows are just so good for this sort of thing. I think we've mentioned this one I'm about to mention in another show way back. I think when we were talking about portals and about time travel and things like that. And that's a show called Sliders.
Yes.
And the premise behind that is this young bloke was trying to invent, and I believe it was like an anti-gravity device or something like that. But what he actually ended up doing was generating a portal. And what he would do is he would throw items in to see what happens, and they would disappear. So for whatever reason why he decided he was going to jump through it, he created like a gateway in his basement, and he went through it, and he actually set the timer for, I think it was like 20 minutes for him to return, something like that. And he actually he came out the other end in Las Vegas, and it was still current times when this was shot, like the 90s or the late 80s, whatever it was. And Elvis was still alive. You know, Elvis live at the Palladium or whatever it was that he was doing. And then his little beeper went off, and he came back, and he realized he'd actually created a portal into a parallel Earth. And you think about it, how close would it be to the Mandela Effect if some of these parallel realities were that close that inadvertently they merge from time to time, and some will end up with memories from what they've seen from that one, and it's probably exactly the same thing in these other parallel worlds. They'll be seeing things from ours.
So, going on with that, saying about people, you know, going to parallel universes and making different things up, there's actually something they call confabulation.
I've heard the term.
Which ties in with the Mandela Effect. So they're false memories that a person spontaneously generates to compensate for holes in person's memories.
Yeah. And that's what I was saying before. If it's one individual, that's fair enough. But when you're talking about en masse, not everybody fills these gaps in their memories with the exact same facts.
Oh God, no! Yeah, no. That's not that's not what I was trying to get at with that.
Yeah.
But you know, you're not really lying. You're just falsely believing a memory that you believe is true.
Exactly.
It's also it can tie in with Alzheimer's as well.
Well, I do have very close. I do have very close ties to that subject, and
it just says here, from what I've read from, it's actually from a medical journal, not the medical journal, but it just says, for example, a person who does not recall what happened to Nelson Mandela might conclude that he died a long time ago. The report being is a fact. The person's not lying; they believe it's false memory. Confabulation is a common symptom of neurological conditions that affect the memory, such as Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. With a person with dementia confabulates, they are not lying or attempting to deceive. They simply have necessary information or awareness to recall specific or memory or event accurately. So that's that's different.
And again, that doesn't explain everybody who doesn't have these medical conditions and the same things happening. So while yes, I do agree that in these instances it could be very easy for them, because I mean dementia and stuff, like, people do get very confused, and for those people that don't know, my father suffers from it, and we deal with it all the time, and there's never any intention behind any of these things that happen. It's just, you know, I mean, his long-term memory is good, but it's, you know, it is starting to go a little bit, but short-term stuff, you know, it's not there. And I don't know, I don't know how people could tie that in with the Mandela Effect. I understand science saying that because it's a plausible thing, you know, but it doesn't explain the numerous accounts of the Mandela Effect.
It doesn't. They've also got here how we said about alternate realities and parallel universes. That was actually a lady. That was her explanation between the Mandela Effect, and the lady herself was a paranormal investigator and researcher. Then you got obviously your internet influence, Facebook, YouTube, this, that, and the other. But apparently there is a study that had been done for trying to, I don't know how to put this in an easier way of saying it. They're trying to make people believe false things extremely quickly. It's called the D. Schroeder-McDermott task paradigm.
You can't even say
I can't even pronounce the bloody word. After leading a list, researchers will ask participant whether they recall a lure word, which is a related word that is not on that list. So you give them a list of like animals: a zebra, monkey, whale, snake, or elephant.
Yeah.
And you could ask them if chimp was on the list. And, they're falsifying people to believe things that weren't there to start with. I suppose that doesn't really fall under Mandela effects as such. It's
no, that falls under more of a mind influence, leading towards sort of mind control and things like that, because it is the power of suggestion. You put a word out there, and that's part of the reason when we do a paranormal investigation of a location, I will, as I've mentioned before, use notebooks, and I don't tell anybody about it, because as soon as you start telling somebody about a location, they have this preconceived notion that as soon as they get anything up, it's going to be exactly what you've been told, and then everything steers in that direction. So I mean, the big one that we did years ago was the old Ed Milne building in Victoria Park, which is an old hospital, and there's a little morgue on site and things like that. And we were actually locked in there overnight. They had an electric fence around it, and I purposely didn't tell anybody anything about it. I just I broke everybody off, as I do, into small groups. And it was that big. There were several buildings in the complex, and I gave them all a notebook and a pen, and I said, do not say a word to the other groups. You keep everything within your group. And I said, at midnight, when we've done several rotations, we will compare notes, and that gives you something solid to work off. But if I'd have turned around and said, if you go into this room, this will happen, people will automatically, anything that happens, wind could blow something over it, everything they will get attributed to that thing, and then it starts to build its own little story. And that's a lot of what you're talking about. It's the power of suggestion. You just put one little nugget into their mind and then just let it go. And it's like that again, it's like that old when I was in school, we did this thing where the teacher had a little note, and it had one phrase on it, whatever it was. And what she said was, I'm going to whisper it to you, and then you just change one word and pass it on to the next person, and then they whisper it onto the next person and change a word, and then see what happens by the time you get around to the other side. As soon as you start suggesting things, you lose any sort of credibility with stuff, in all honesty. And that's what those tests that you were talking about was. See how easily the mind can be manipulated, and unfortunately it can be manipulated quite easily.
Extremely easy.
Yeah. And I don't know, is the Mandela effect something like that? I don't know. I mean, I suppose all it would take is for a TV station, if you're talking about specifically those TV shows and things like that and movies, to slightly edit one scene and just throw it up every now and then and see what happens, and then people start taking to that rather than what was actually said in the film. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that.
You've just described most news outlets, major news outlets. CNN.
Yep.
Someone had to say it.
Again, the media have a lot to answer for.
But they do. Is that the Bernsteins or the Bernsteins? The Bernsteins.
There's a few of those people in the media I would describe as a stain.
In 2022, they were still actually doing research into the Mandela effect, what causes it, why it happens, what could help prevent things like this happening in the future.
Yeah, I mean, and again, this is the same thing. Basically, what you just said there was we've given several examples of what have been deemed the Mandela effect, but how do we know they're not happening right now? Because we won't know about it until later down the track when somebody pings us on it and says, this is what it is. They go, no, this is what it is.
Or is it the X-Files or is it X-Files?
X-Files. I don't know.
Is it?
Don't start dropping words and things like that, but it was a good show. It was a good show.
It is the X-Files. Just
and it's as easy as that,
It is, and it's just Well, realistically, it's still someone putting doubt in your mind and you're going, oh, hang on a second, I've got a 50-50 chance here.
Well, no, that's exactly. Normally, if somebody had asked me about the X-Files, that's how I would say it. But as soon as you question it, you have to think about it. And then, like you said, it's a 50-50, and I'm not good in test situations.
No, not unless it's testing out new flavors of Pepsi or Twizzlers, but that's another story.
I've still got those Carolina Reaper chips out there. I wasn't game to open them by myself.
That could send you in a different dimension.
Yeah.
Of flavour.
It'll send you in outer space as well.
So, what else?
Oh, look, it just goes so far, you know.
It really does open doors to other things. As we've said numerous times on the podcast, that, you know, you talk about one thing and it opens the door to 7 other things.
Well,
you know, and then you could go back to one that we've just recorded and with conspiracy theories. You know, the Mandela Effect, you know, does that come into that in any way for anything, you know?
Yeah, well, it does. I mean, all right, going back to, you know how you mentioned the Matrix a little while ago and talking about a glitch in the Matrix. There is growing support for the theory that the whole world is a giant simulation. And very much like the movie, when there's a glitch in the Matrix, it's when the powers that be that are out there somewhere are reprogramming it all, which accounts for deja vu. It could account for all Mandela effects if somebody there is writing some code somewhere and they get one word wrong.
So you could call it a flashpoint?
There are so many, you know. Just the term Mandela effect. I mean, we could talk about all the different we could talk about the different cases of the Mandela effect. You know, the different things that we've already discussed. But that is just what we know. What's intriguing is what we don't know. What actually is it? You know, because again, when you talk about this simulation and stuff, it's like an old recording, which is very much for me describes a residual haunting. Is if you rewrite code, there might be fragments left over, which for us appear like a ghost or a spirit. So that does tie in with that whole.
Oh, it does, big time. But what was the Mandela Effect called before it was coined, the Mandela Effect?
I don't remember it actually having a name. I just remember them talking about these different memories.
I suppose it was fall under false memories?
Yeah, something like that.
That's about it.
Yeah. It wasn't until, like I said, that lady coined the term the Mandela Effect that it really started to grow, because then they've got something that they can name it, and then
you can link it up with something.
Yeah.
And I suppose the whole Nelson Mandela thing was a big thing worldwide.
Well, it was. I mean, like I said, I do remember in the back of my memory somewhere hearing that he died in prison. I know he didn't, you know, but there's this whole split timeline thing happening.
Well, it doesn't sound as, you know, Mandela Effect sounds a little bit more professional rather than like the Armstrong Effect.
Well, we won't go into that because you mentioned that before. No.
Like, look, it surprised me as well, because I didn't know until I looked and then asked you the question.
No, it's interesting. It's interesting. The whole thing.
There's hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of examples you can use, and you could sit there. Oh, I know I could sit there with you and talk for ages.
Yeah.
And go, hey, what about this one? Holy crap, I didn't know about this one. Did you know about this one? And it's just, it makes you feel silly.
Yeah.
It does. It's like, hang on a second. You start questioning yourself over something so simple. It's like, what else have I done wrong in my life?
I do believe if we're going to sort of niche it somewhere, look at something like the many world theories and things like that, you know, the multiverse and things like that, because
all the quantum physics and stuff to go like that.
Oh man, there are so many stories that we can go into about that, about people claiming to be from an alternate Earth or from a different time.
Has been done.
And well, there's some absolutely massive cases, you know. God.
Oh, there was a supposed leaked footage from Area 51 with the alien as well. This is going way off topic now from Mandela Effects, but
Oh, it is. But there's one.
it was
Have you
it
ever
was the alien.
heard of the coronagraph?
Yes, I've heard of it. I don't know exactly what it is.
It's according to reports, it's kept in under the Vatican in those secret catacombs where all those books are. I know that place exists because I know somebody who's been down there. What they have down there, I don't know because they would never tell me. But they reckon it's this device that, and I've got no idea how it works, but they can fire it up and project onto a wall, and they can see back in time. And they reckon they've seen. Remember, this is the Vatican. The crucifixion of Christ.
Okay, because I didn't know what it was, and I've just Googled it, and it goes, it's used to observe the sun's corona and prominences.
Yeah,
it blocks out the star's light.
Yeah.
Well, that's what they tell us. Is that a Mandela effect?
Hang on, are you talking about the coronasphere or the corona?
A coronagraph. It's a telescopic attachment designed to block out direct light from a star or other bright object, so that the nearby objects, which otherwise are easy to see.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, how weird is that?
It's really interesting. So I don't know if that's another Mandela effect thing starting off there. Somebody who reckons they've got this device called the coronagraph that can see back in time. Yeah. Oh, I think we are just about out of time, you know.
I think we are.
I'm saying that now only because it usually takes us about 5 minutes to actually go.
It does. But I want one of these coronagraphs now.
Oh man, there are so many stories I could tell you about so many different things, but it would sound a whole load of waffle to everybody who's watching in, so that's probably best kept. And I don't know if we get enough out of our conversation, we can do a show on it.
I think it might be something to talk about in the live streams.
Yeah, definitely.
Because you've got enough chance to waffle on, so if people want to ask questions, by all means, don't forget about that. We do live streams every Friday night. Every
Friday night, about 9 o'clock Perth time. I'll say about 9 o'clock. It could be a few minutes either side. 8. Yeah, Greenwich Mean Time +8. For anybody around the world, you can work it out for yourself.
It's about that time.
Yes, and if you do come onto those, you can actually join in the chat room, which does scroll down the side of the page, so you can chat with everybody else that's watching, or if you want to call in, you can call in as well and have a bit of a chat. So
I'm just going to make it completely easy for Gary and say, look, we could probably put a YouTube link up here somewhere.
Oh, thank you. Now I've got more work to do. Before he says anything else, I think we better call it for the night.
No worries. You guys have a great night.
Take it easy, guys.